Live,
Going live. Going live, going live, going live.
live streaming people.
Live.
I've been sending people the link to book for a show, and they're like, "You're booked until August."
Yeah, exactly. We're booked until August.
I'm like, that's how important we are.
Yeah, I mean, the truth be told is that I cannot think. I want to book way ahead so that I can turn my brain off. That's how it works. So it's my incapability that forces us to book so far.
No, but it's great
Yeah.
because it's very efficient.
Yeah, but a contemporary topic would never come on, but because by the time someone gets on, it'd be over. We've got Ronnie Gurwicz on today.
1,000 coffees with 1,000 people.
I like those silent pauses. I just wanted to see where we could go with that. He's in November 2019, he decided that he was going to have 1,000 coffees with 1,000 different people. And from that, a mutual friend of ours introduced and said, "Hey, this seems like it would be a great topic for the show." And I said, "Hey, I'm game." I thought it was a great idea. We're going to discuss that for the hour on
Senei Berojo House
and much more. Bye-bye.
Now, why would anyone? Well, actually, there must be a coffee lover, right? But there's something about drinking a coffee with someone and having a conversation. There's something like a tea's a tea, but a coffee.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like I also have breakfast with 3 people a week, and normally it's clients or friends or whatever. And I have 3 kinds of coffees: Peruvian, Moroccan, and Turkish.
Oh yeah.
For the people in my country, it's Cyprus coffee, but in fact, it's Turkish coffee. And that's what I serve. And we sit down and we have the most amazing conversations for 60 minutes, unless they don't drink coffee and then they get tea.
Wow. You know what? As you spoke just now, I had something I realized. I lived in Vienna for 10 years, and there's a coffee culture in Vienna. So you go to a place which serves coffee, and they have newspapers, and the intention is that you sit at the coffee house as if it's an extension of your living room, and you just enjoy the day there. And then they'll bring you a second coffee or they'll bring you a cake. But the culture is one where we say we're going to go out and meet for a coffee. And that was something that before having lived in Vienna, I didn't see it as culturally embedded. I see it more and more in other countries, but it wasn't that way until people started like piggybacking off of Starbucks. And as far as I experienced it, but in Vienna, my whole life was let's meet for a coffee. And I know there was a mental state that I went into when I went for that coffee in Vienna, which is different than in the Netherlands.
So what's the mental state?
The mental state was that the culture was so primed that in the interaction around coffee, it's all about us having an intimate connection, that was what drew me to that way of being. I really miss it, actually, not being in Vienna, where here there seems to be more of a practicality around it. And, there's such little space in the city of Amsterdam that a lot of times you'll get a coffee and you won't even sit in a decorative room. So even the setting in Vienna for me was decadent. It was a decadent place to be. You felt like you were taken and whisked away into another time when I was there. So yeah, I actually noticed I missed that. Yeah.
Sitting in Cyprus is also very nice. Like in the city I grew up in, it's like you've got these really old buildings with nice chairs, and the government doesn't really control where people sit, so sometimes these terraces extend quite far out.
Okay.
And if you're inside it and you're a writer, an artist, it's very inspirational. And there might be one of those old fans whizzing. It's 40 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And everyone walks in. There's a bit of sweat on the face. Everyone's wearing like very light clothing. And I'm like, this is home. So in 10 days, Andy, We'll be broadcasting from
I love it.
Cyprus.
Yes, a remote broadcast. I can't wait for it. Well, I'd say with that, it would be great to bring Ronnie on. Ronnie, our friend, our new friend, Gurwicz. Is that our correct pronunciation?
Do you know what? You pronounce it way better than most people I've ever met. So well done.
Yeah, that's the Jew. That's the Jew in me. I learned
Shalef.
When my great grandparents went from wherever it was in Russia, they had a V at the end of the name, Chaliev. And then at some point they turned the V into two Fs because no one in the US could pronounce it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this till I was 22 years old living in Australia when some friend of mine says, do you realize, first of all, that you're Russian? I said, no, I didn't know I'm Russian, which is kind of funny that I didn't even know that till I was in my 20s. But yeah.
Ronnie, I've got 2 questions for you.
Ask away.
What prompts you? Like, what state of mind are you in when you decide to have your first coffee?
Wow. That's a really good question. I mean, this is there's kind of 2 backstories to the whole project. And the first one maybe we can get back to soon if you'd like to hear it. That's the longer one. But the shorter one is me sitting with my good friend Matty. And we sat there. It's probably maybe 1 a.m. in Manchester in England, November 2019, give or take, I think, at the start of November. And we're drinking a little bit of whiskey. It's late at night. We're discussing the world and ideas, and we're discussing this idea of how you connect with people. And he tells me, he says, "Oh, I was listening to a podcast, and I listened to this 17-year-old girl that decided she was going to have 1,000 coffees with 1,000 different CEOs of different companies." And he says, "Oh, why didn't you do that?" I said, "Well, I don't know. It sounds like a nice idea, but why just CEOs? Why not other people too? Why can't we reproduce this relaxed conversation that we have here, like over a glass of whiskey, at 1 a.m.? Why can't I try and reproduce that with people all around the world of all different types?" And I guess, that I gave you that intro because that's the state of mind that I try and get into when I sit down there, speak to people. I mean, you mentioned just before I came on about coffee and this state of mind that you go into, the mental state. It's very similar. I mean, at the moment, for the past couple of months, I've been having the coffees online over Zoom from this caravan over here. And when I open the door of the caravan and I get inside, I go into that coffee mindset. It's relaxed. Nothing else is happening. The phone is off. The screen is off except for this. It's paradise in a sense. Yeah.
I was kind of assuming that maybe you were in a place of, wow, I really want human connection. I feel lonely, or winter is coming. Fuck off.
He's projecting.
I said.
I know.
Yeah. What do you do then if you're kind of opening your door? So in a way, you're inviting all energy. So what do you do when someone sits with you and you're like, wow, I don't want to sit with this person?
Yeah. What happens when it's a shitty coffee? Like, what happens then?
Shitty connection, shitty coffee.
Yeah.
Do you know what? This is going to sound very, very cliched and stereotypical, but I think there have been 0 shitty coffees. The
really?
Only
300, 300 in each one. You're like, they all went well. Yeah. I love that.
Except, well, the ones that didn't go well, and say there may be 1 or 2, if we're going to be honest, and those 2, but those were people who weren't in the state of mind to be there. If this was online and they were trying to do other things at the same time, or they didn't really want to be there, they'd kind of scheduled it wrong, and you could tell they wanted to leave. And then I say, no problem, let's reschedule, and then we go. But aside from that, if someone is committed to being there, it doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter what they are, it always goes wonderfully.
It's a golden rule of life, what you're telling us, one that Bambos and I religiously follow. And every time I've broken it, it's screwed up badly. And do you know what I'm thinking about right now? Just because we share this often, we've shared it in the past.
What was that?
So Bambos is a photographer, an exceptional photographer. Every time I've set up someone said, hey, I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna have Bambos shoot some pictures for you. And if they didn't go into it with their desire for that photo, but they're doing it because I gave it to them, it always went bad. So that's it. It reminds me of what you're saying is like there has to be the right state of mind. Otherwise, it's just not. Don't do it.
So moving forward, I never allow people to show up for a shoot if they don't have a full yes and it came as a gift.
Yeah, no gifts. No gifts. Yeah, but it sounds similar because if I hear you, it's also a bit like if they're not really knowing what they're getting into, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm meeting this guy for a coffee. I'd love. Last week, there was a guy in the Netherlands. He lives about 2 hours from here, and he was the producer for the movie Speed. And we have a mutual contact, and I thought it would be cool to have a chat with the guy and just a random walk and meet and talk. So the friend connects us, and I said, hey, I'm going to walk to your city. It would be great to have a coffee. Yeah. And then he answered like, what can I do for you? And I was like, I was like, interesting. There's nothing that you can do for me. I just thought it would be nice to meet someone new, and it was fun to hear. And we have the mutual connect. And so it was almost like I was like, okay, now I have no interest in having that meeting because
you just killed it.
Exactly. The whole desire is just to have this wonderful interaction where there's nothing that's needed from one another. We get to discover one another and hear another backstory.
Well, you know what? I'm really busy, and sometimes people will message me, hey, do you want to meet? And sometimes like, what's the intention? Especially if I don't know them. Like, what is let's have an intention at least.
Yeah. True.
And if there's no intention, then I'm happy to meet them, but I won't create the time immediately. Yeah. So my next question is, how much sex have you had?
Yeah, I had a question that didn't go that direct. I had a question that was a little bit less direct than that, but how many things have evolved from a meeting that were unexpected?
Ooh. Do you know what? From these coffee meetings, these coffee projects, to be honest, not so much. And that's a good thing. You know, to me, this kind of coffee project it's pure. It may be very naive of me, but I try and keep it holy. You know, I'm talking to people, and they're wonderful people, and they're amazing, and we build up this connection over an hour and a half. But then there's no need to stay in contact. And I'm sure over the years to come, there will be connections made and, projects built up on the connection that we made over that first coffee. But I don't push it because
clearly. But were there moments were there moments while you're having that coffee, looking at her or him, I don't know which one you may be more interested in at any moment, to say, there's someone here that I feel deeply connected to, and it would be nice if it went further. Has that happened in those 300 coffees or not?
Of course it has. Yeah, many times. Most people, to be honest. Yeah, oh, definitely. Wow. I mean, when you sit there, when you sit there with someone, I think when you provide that open space to speak about anything and everything, and it's completely safe, there's no one listening in. Nothing will be published. I won't speak about it with your name on a Wonderful Chaos podcast. You know, it's just this holy space which someone can really tap into, and people do, and I do. I end up sharing things about myself which are pretty vulnerable and pretty emotional, and that's testament to the power of a good cup of coffee, or just conversation. Right?
Yeah. Ronnie, I'm really appreciating you because in the way that you. Like, even when I ask you that question and the way you've engaged it, and the fact that it just seems to me that you meet people where they are, and there's a full acceptance of them. Like when I said one of my first questions, like, was there anyone that you were like, oh God, I don't want to be with this person? I just felt you had so much love in you, and that's how you're engaging it. And that's quite remarkable to witness that in you.
You see, this is when my the red cheeks start coming out and I start getting embarrassed. But thank you.
We can Photoshop it. Don't worry.
Perfect. Yeah.
I have random questions for you.
Knock them out.
Oldest person you had a coffee with so far?
Oh, 70s.
70s.
Most famous person?
Unnamed politicians, high-powered politicians in the UK.
Nice.
Youngest person you've had coffees with?
18. Yeah. I'd say
Longest.
I'm just going to take you up on that for a second. I've often wondered, should I try and see if some children want to have a cup of coffee with me? I'm not sure what the parents would say. It's
you'll get into trouble. Like sometimes Andy loves children, so if he sees them on the street, his wife might tell him, "Don't talk to random children."
Or I won't talk to them. I'll just wave to them as if, "Hey, hey." And Ronnie's like, "Andy, that's somebody else's child. Like they're there to protect them." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like the nicest guy. I'm not good, but she's like, "Yeah, but that's you. How many others are there out there?"
Yeah. I see you approaching children the same way that you approach this pit bull.
I was going to say the same way you approach the dogs, right? That's what I was going to say.
He actually shoves the phone in the dog's face, and the dog is sniffing the actual iPhone.
Yeah, they lick the phones and things. I'm a dog, and I'm a lover of everything that hasn't been corrupted by society yet.
That's a very wise phrase. Yeah, and I guess there aren't many things. Dogs, children.
Yeah, in general.
Ronnie, do you have your coffee with you also right now? Because Andy's drinking coffee right now.
I drank it because I wanted to be your 302nd coffee. I thought this could be the 302nd coffee for you.
Do you know what? There's two of you. It has to be 1 and 1, otherwise it doesn't count.
So
that's a rule. We didn't ask the rule.
So let's say you connect. You sit down. Like how do you create the context and the container so that people can relax with a perfect stranger? And I mean, how do you?
Can I rephrase it? You sit at the table. You sit at the table. How do you start the conversation?
Oh, I love this one because I remember the first 100 coffee. No, probably the first 50. I was thinking before each one, should I have a list of questions? Should I maybe try and push them towards a certain thing? And maybe I was kind of nervous. This is a new person. What are they going to be like? But now I realized I love small talk. Small talk is your best friend.
Yeah.
Will you
do the weather? Will you do a weather thing?
Everything, the weather, how you're feeling, all that kind of stuff. I know when people hear it, they're like, "Really?" I was like, "Yes," because when you small talk with someone, all you're doing, you're just getting them relaxed. You're opening them up, and that first 20 minutes, I've noticed this in my head. I haven't done the statistics. I would love to, but the first 20 to 25 minutes is small talk time, right? That's when we they're assessing me, I'm assessing them, they're figuring out what I'm about. After 25 minutes, that's when the magic starts.
But this is what I've told you, Bambos. Yeah. I've been trying to explain to Bambos for years now. What do I say to you?
Kiss first before sex.
Kiss before sex. So a lot of times he wants to jump to sex. I'm like, no, we got to kiss first. That'll take us a little time. But
just to give context, he's actually talking about a conversation.
We're only talking about conversation.
Just like when I asked you directly, how much sex have you had? But I also can feel in our connection that you can feel my intention when I ask that question. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, but there's going to be 100 people to listen to this podcast after this, Bambos, and I guarantee they're all judging you.
Lovingly.
Oh, dude.
Slow down there.
Yeah.
Oof. Like
I feel like I've intruded on a moment or something.
No, actually,
this is the show.
Actually, when Andy makes a comment like that, or that there's going to be 100 people that judge, I tend to laugh it away or joke it away. But now that I'm more present with myself, I can really feel that if that's a reality, it hurts.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pretend that it doesn't hurt. And at the same time, I have to say, I just don't like small talk. Like when I meet people, I allow myself to unfold, because the moment I go to small talk, it means I have to listen to content where I can't fully be present, and that's just me.
Yeah.
Not I can't. I just don't want to be present with small talk. I really want to hear, how's your heart today? What's it like being you? Like you woke up this morning, I see I noticed your breathing is a bit shallow. Like what's going on for you? And sometimes if people can't meet me there, I'll tone it down, or I'll share a little bit about where I am. So in that way, the more vulnerable I can be, that's an invitation for them to go as deep as they want. And it's been working out for me perfectly.
Yeah, I had a mentor who died some years ago, and I'm all about small talk. Like, I can do small talk just as long as we need to go, right? I'll pull out stuff like, I love the curtain you got. When did you get that? How is that? You know, whatever it is, it can go on for. And I remembered my mentor used to go crazy because he could not do any small talk, not unlike Bambos. So he would always get frustrated at the table and leave because he says this conversation is meaningless. And I, not all that dissimilar from you, I see that it is a process, and you almost like you get to know one through that initial kind of, and then you make one joke and you say, how far does this joke go? Can we go a little bit further? And then you say, can we really? And it's almost like, it's like turning the heat up on a conversation.
We call it priming.
Until you get to a point you're like, wow, we're really in a connected space where we didn't even know how we got there. Yeah.
That's exactly it. I mean, it's just coming to my mind, this idea of a boxing match. You know, when you see two people boxing and they're kind of sparring first, it's the small things at the start, and then one person kind of overreaches, and then there's a point of vulnerability. You know, in this small talk, people talk about things, and you can sense, if you're listening properly, you can sense what things they're passionate about, even in the small talk, right? And then once you have that, you can maybe start questioning that. You can see where they want to go, what kind of mood they are in to talk in. And I mean, maybe Bambos, maybe you have a much better way of talking. But
no, I wouldn't say better. It's different.
It's it's definitely different, I guess. Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty about it. Everyone has a different way of communicating.
And just to be clear,
for me and Andy, it seems to work.
There's no judgment. Like, I wouldn't leave the table.
Well, I mean, I interestingly, in your case, in my experience with you, by the way, let's also make it, is that I've experienced you when it comes to small talk. It's not that you judge it. It's that you don't see the individual, and therefore your brain doesn't know what to do. It just sort of like, it just kind of disconnects.
Not anymore.
No. But we're talking about like, we did 100 shows, and then
the first 100 shows were tough.
First 100 shows were tough because I'm sitting next to him. If he couldn't feel the guest, he went stone-faced, and I would look over and say, stone-faced.
Trauma.
Yeah, it was trauma, and it was a trauma that we weren't aware of. But as it became more aware, we could actually interact and like welcome it to the show.
Actually, the moment it was named as trauma, it never really happened again.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, just the naming and the acknowledging, it kind of grounded me.
Yeah, there was like a love you gave it instead of judging it and saying, oh, I should be otherwise.
Yeah.
Because I think I said you were shutting down. And by saying you were shutting down,
I shut down.
It became a reinforcing loop. He's shutting down, and now we're actually, that doesn't go anywhere. Like, pointing out that he's shutting down doesn't help him open up, right? That was a little bit of our journey. That's what we learned about doing the show. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So you're not only learning things about guests, you're learning things about yourself.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah. This show has evolved. It's been the best 213 episodes of personal development, growth, learning to love myself, meeting others where they are. Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And being aware that everyone has a different way of being. And just because I don't understand it, it doesn't mean it's excluded.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to change that state of being, it's more like I engage it more from curiosity now. And this actually has evolved through doing the shows. And just to give some context, Andy has been my mentor for many years. So,
and the show was Bambos's idea. So we do this show because Bambos said, Andy, you're such a good mentor. You should actually be doing shows.
I told him, I feel selfish, like getting all this like knowledge from you every fucking day, and I'd be recording them. We should actually do this. And eventually we started inviting people.
Yeah. And then we learned through these. So your coffee is very much, because we're doing this show daily as well. And we don't do the coffee per se. We usually have tea, but I very much feel like very similar in a way, because I think my vision has been, how do we hold space for topics that are very foreign, we're not sure about? We'll go into racism, we'll go into injustice, we'll go into rape and molestation, where people share really intense experiences. And our sort of vision on our best day is that we're giving space to someone to be present with their emotions, because they see that we can hold those without getting triggered and trying to fix them, right? Yeah.
That's something
our friend Bulelang, who's in South Africa, he says, I think I like Bambis have to learn to enjoy small talk. He's talking about me, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bulelang. I'll make a note of that.
Bulelang is our guest in South Africa. He's with us every day.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I want to go back to something you said a moment ago, which was, you said you'll go through the small talk and then there'll be a moment when there's some glimmer of something you see in their eyes, which reveals what they're passionate about. And I could not agree with that statement anymore. And it's funny because once I see that, it's almost like I feel like I understand that person finally.
Yeah, definitely.
So how is that? How is it for you?
It's a beautiful thing. And sometimes it's not one thing, sometimes it's a few. It's fitting together this jigsaw, but it's that joy, that happiness of finding that thing that this person opposite you wants to share with you. You know, that one thing that they can, that gets their engine going as well.
Yeah.
It's not just the back and forth. And then you can almost sit back and enjoy what comes at you.
Comes at it, yeah.
You know, it's not a chore for them for that person sitting there. And it's just so nice. It's really nice.
What I found funny about those things, and I don't know, is that it's not obvious things sometimes. Like you're thinking, oh, it's going to be the kids. Oh, once they talk about their kids, their eyes are going to light up. But sometimes it's like a random snail collection or something, just something that has nothing connected to anything you could associate being excited about. But that's the thing that gives them joy.
100%. I mean,
so share some of those with me. Are there things that surprised you when, like, you met somebody and then they came up with something, you're like, wow, this shakes my world? Has that happened?
There are so many. I mean, when you said that, it reminded me of a conversation I had a couple of months ago. And I'm sat there with this person. I won't say who they are or where they were from, but they're quite a high-powered person that works in high tech, right? And I'm thinking we're going to talk about I don't know, some sort of software development or whatever it may be. And the thing they were passionate of talking, they wanted to talk about was their little clay trinkets. They were really into making clay trinkets, taking plasticine and molding that into something. And that was the thing. That was this point that got us to led us to a whole host of different things. And you think, wow, I didn't expect that. Why? And I could even share this morning a conversation I had, and this is someone who's very active in environmental circles. He's an ecologist, works in off-grid living, and you think, wow, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. And no, we spoke about love, we spoke about dating, and that's, like you said, that's the beauty. You can find those things people are passionate about, and then it just goes. It's like a river. It meanders through. It goes here, it goes there. It doesn't matter. And
that's what I feel like the small talk leads to. For me, is that somehow you do that until you get to that point when all of a sudden the dam bursts and it starts to flow on its own.
So I'm happy we've kind of discovered that small talk has its place in this universe.
Yes, it does.
I'd like to ask you.
Go on, yeah.
Do you, like, before you started doing this, would you say you're more of an introvert or an extrovert?
I would say overall introverted.
100%.
I mean, going back to my childhood, very introverted, very, very shy. And this, to be fair, the coffee project is part of a long-term, I think, challenge that I gave myself maybe 10, 15 years ago to push myself, to push my boundaries and learn more about people. And this is a very active part of it. But aside from this, I definitely am, I think, quite introverted.
Nice.
I wonder if I don't know if friends of mine would agree or disagree, but that's how I feel.
Like, let me ask you a check question. If you go to a bar, how comfortable are you walking up to a woman and buying her a drink?
Well, I've been a bartender for years, so I'd be far more comfortable being behind the bar. And I can't stand parties. I get very lost. Yeah.
Okay.
How have the coffees impacted you as a person?
Wow. So many ways. I mean, I think three things are just coming to me very, very strongly right now in response to the question. The first one is that it's brought me a great amount of joy and life satisfaction. I mean, when I know, I think back to December, January, here in the UK, we were in another COVID lockdown. The weather was horrific, and I'm lying there in bed and thinking, okay, wow, what do I have tomorrow? What do I have to get up for, right? If we're being very brutally honest. And if I know I have a coffee, I have a chat with someone new, it's excitement. It brings me this joy and this happiness, and that's one thing. Another thing is just the sheer, I have this gratitude to the world, to people in the world, to all the different diverse opinions. The fact that one day I can chat with someone and they'll completely try and change my mind about something I'm really passionate about, and the next day someone will completely agree with me, and I just have this sense of gratitude to all the different things that are around. And maybe the third one, it's changed me in a way, maybe a little connected to what I said about the challenge of getting to know people better. It's gotten me to push more at becoming at taking advantage, not taking advantage, but if I meet someone for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or somewhere, and usually that relationship would kind of be all right, see you sometime, and that would be it. But if I grab onto them and say, hey, let's have a coffee sometime, and then we do, then I've taken advantage of that little entrance to another person's life and widened that entrance by a little bit. And I think it's made me do that in other parts of my life as well, even outside the project.
Nice.
Yeah. I hope that answers the question adequately.
Yeah, you do. And there's another side question which is a bit similar, but it's different. What has been one of the most important discoveries you made about yourself?
From the
Yeah, like through connecting, having all these people being your mirror. Like, what's something that really comes up?
Well, I'll be very vulnerable, and I'll share with you something that I'm still unsure about myself. And I hope a lot of people listen to this for your sake, but maybe for this bit, I'm not sure. I hope how many people are listening to this. No, I'm fine with sharing it. Someone once, I had coffee with someone, and they accused me, I think in a mock joking way, or perhaps they were being extremely serious, I don't know, that I enjoy connecting to so many different people around the world, but only for a short period of time, because I'm scared of being fully vulnerable with one person. They were saying, are you in a full-time, long-term relationship? And I said, oh no, I'm not in a long-term relationship. And they said, well, they were trying to psychoanalyze me and say, aha, so I know what you are. You're one of those people that gets his emotional connection a bit here, a bit there from all sorts of hundreds of different people. And that was very insulting. And that also
this is beautiful. I love this talk. Was this a female or a male? Just out of curiosity.
I prefer not to say, just not to give away.
The reason why
any
I had a specific reason asking the question was because if it was, for instance, a female who may have had any interest in you, then this may have been her way of telling you that you're one of those men that frustrates the hell out of me because you're not committing to anything or anyone. I've heard this conversation on more than one occasion. Let's tell you that. Yeah.
But very, very possibly. But that's something. So after the first, visceral reaction of, wait, hey, no, that's not me. That's not why I'm doing this. It has got me thinking over the past few months. Is there some sort of truth in that? Not in a bad way, but in a way that, maybe this is something that I'm more comfortable with connecting to people at a little bit of an arm's length distance.
So Ronnie, tell me where you're emotionally not comfortable sharing with us right now.
Well, I have a list. Do you want to see?
Let's prove her wrong right now.
If you're watching the show.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think overall, actually, on that, I wonder if you're going to try, find a topic that I don't want to talk about. I think overall, on these coffee conversations, most topics come up, and I don't think there's rarely things that we try and stay away from, and that's testament to the trust that people have in me and that I have in them, and it feels good. It feels
that's
it's an
beautiful.
honor.
Yeah, it feels that way. That's the way I think I'd say we feel it. An honor for people to share with us, and knowing even that we're being viewed as we're talking, which is really sweet.
Yeah.
I got some questions, but I thought you had something, so I leave.
I'm curious. How do people find you?
Well, this is the fun. You see, I don't have any social media. And I try.
What do you mean you don't have any like no Facebook, no LinkedIn, no Instagram?
No LinkedIn, no Instagram, no Twitter, no Snapchat. I have Facebook. I have Facebook Messenger, but I don't have any presence on it aside from that. So, and this has been a really fascinating thing. Then trying to find people to have coffees with me. So, at the moment, there's a lot of people who refer other people onto me, which is I'm so grateful for, and it's really nice when people kind of come on my website, send me an email, and they say, "Oh, I heard about you from X, Y, and Z," or possibly, I've had a few people who say, "I've heard about you from someone," and I don't know who that person is, but it's somehow gone through some sort of grapevine. But aside from that, there's a lot of fun in just reaching out to random people. I reach out to so many random people. 19 out of 20 don't respond.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, how many? What's your conversion rate? If you had a funnel, like, what is your conversion rate of writing to random people who don't know me, and then what? How does that kind of show up?
1 out of 50.
No.
Yeah. Writing to random people does not work. But yeah. I'd say, yeah, about that. Maybe 1 out of 40. 1 out of 40, let's say.
That's a lot of effort for one coffee.
So you have a template that you copy paste and send it to everyone.
Kinda. I do try and personalize it as well, and say a little bit about who the people are, or if I figured out what they do or something. But yeah, no, it's definitely about 1 in 40. It's a lot of work to get a coffee out of it.
Wow,
sounds like worth it.
I was going to say, Bambos does this every day. You guys can commiserate together around how hard it is to send people cold emails.
I do 150 cold emails every day, but I have a 1% conversion.
And yeah, we learned that.
That's really good that you have the statistics for it. I mean, it's great to know. Yeah. Is this for the podcast? Or?
You get refused 1 or 14 out of 15 times. How many times do you refuse someone else, if ever?
I have never ever refused someone.
You've never refused someone, really?
Nope.
Nice. So anyone watching this show who's in the Kent area can say, Ronnie.
Anywhere.
Well, anywhere. We can do this over Zoom.
Oh, okay. I thought you were doing this only physical.
No, I was, but then COVID showed up, and things changed.
How old are you?
28.
What's your weight?
Probably 88 kilos.
88 kilos, nice.
Chunky dude, yeah.
And your height?
1.80 m. I think it's 80 or 79. Yeah, 1.79 m.
Okay, so for all you women out there looking at Ronnie, saying this could be my next man, you could have a coffee with him if you'd like.
But that's the beauty of it. It's not for that at all.
I know.
You see, I don't want people to get the wrong idea.
No, well,
I appreciate that. Let's send them to my Tinder profile.
Do not follow
the coffee project. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what you're looking for or not looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we would say, let's be clear. The humor or the beauty of the project is exactly the opposite of how I just framed it, is that you actually get to meet people who are just genuinely curious to interact and meet with someone around with no specific outcome in mind, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful acts we can actually do. And something we're wholly unfamiliar with because of this transactional thought we have. What am I going to get out of this?
you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, I mentioned earlier that there's the main backstory to why I'm doing the project. I mean, do you have a couple of minutes for me to share that story, because
Please.
it's exactly what you just said. So I'm going to shout out to my friend Anna, who may be listening to this, or she's in the US, so maybe it's the wrong time zone. But she, very good friend of mine. We were living in Sweden at the same time, and we were both, we discussed a lot about how to connect with people. She's a very similar mindset to myself. And one day she used to take the same train every day to work. She was a teacher. The same train, 6:10 every morning. She goes there, and every day she sees the same guy. It's a train in Sweden. Everyone's quiet. They don't talk. One day they start talking. They realize that they're both teachers and they work at a similar chain of schools, and they share a few words, and then they're like, oh yeah, we should grab a coffee sometime. And like, oh, yeah, let's grab a coffee. They exchange numbers, and that was it. And I told her, I was like, okay, this is one of those times when people say, oh yeah, let's grab a coffee, and then it never happens, right?
Yeah.
But this time she said, oh no, we already arranged it. We're going to meet Saturday morning for a coffee. I was like, okay, fair enough. I guess you proved me wrong on that one. Comes Sunday afternoon, and she comes. She comes. Oh, was it? Yeah, a few hours later or something. She comes to She comes to the bar where I was working, and she's extremely annoyed, right? And so I'm thinking, oh, what happened? So she tells me, they had a really nice conversation. They'd had a good coffee. They spoke for about 2 hours, and at the end of it, he'd invited her to dinner at his place on Tuesday evening. And she said, "Oh, let me just clarify kind of where you're going with this. If you're after something romantic, then I'm not interested. But if you want to be friends, absolutely. Let's make dinner. We can do it your place, my place. Invite some other people. Make a party out of it. Whatever you like." And unfortunately, he got quite angry. I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what words were exchanged, but from how Anna described it to me, he started shouting at her and saying, "What's wrong with you? Where's the logic in this? Do you like playing with people? And is this a game to you that you're just inviting me along for a coffee without being romantically interested in me?" Okay, now.
Whew. I can feel like. Let's just take a deep breath, Bambos. Just a deep breath in.
Breath, yeah.
And another one, Andy.
How many times do you live this, Bambos, in the last month?
So now this was the bit that really hit me the most. So she says, "Okay, Ronnie, I want to do an experiment." Okay, what's the experiment? So she said she called over my colleagues, so waitresses, waiters, bartenders, and she told them the story, and she asked them to say, who did they think was correct? She was like, was I wrong for going for a coffee with a guy that I wasn't interested in romantically? Was he wrong for reacting in the way that he did? And to my surprise, at least half of them, and this is kind of young people, this is Sweden, very progressive, so on. A lot of them said, yeah, no, he's right. Like, why would you go for coffee with someone that you weren't romantically interested in? And, to cut a long story short, that was the start of this whole project. I mean, like you said before, the idea of being able to connect to people without any ulterior motive, without no agenda, with nothing. It's so difficult in the transactional nature of life, like exactly like you said, sometimes it's romance, sometimes it's business, sometimes it's networking, sometimes it's I don't know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, however you want to call it.
Yeah,
but oftentimes there's something behind it.
Yeah,
and that's a shame, I thought, and this is why we're here today.
Yeah, it's a shame.
I tend to always create a context when meeting people, so that there's no confusion. Unless I'm really sure that, like, as I'm very sensitive, I can really feel, oh, this is just meeting and connecting. Like, there's nothing more to it.
Yeah, but that's in your context. You're already saying I'm having 1,000 coffees, so you've set the context pretty clear. There's no real false, advertising in your case.
And although you would be surprised, you'd be surprised how many people even so think that I'm after something else, which is an interesting. That it's kind of fun, actually, seeing people at the end who still want to know what's going on.
Here's a little bit.
Yeah. Like, when are you going to sell me your scheme? Here, exactly. so that at the end you can sell me something. Yeah.
Here's a little mind fuck though.
Okay.
You are a man,
Yeah.
and as men, like I never want to deny myself. Like feelings will come up, and
Mm.
if I am interacting with a woman and the intention was just to meet and because we have certain things in common, if I feel them, I don't deny them. I actually do create a space where I get to share myself because I don't
Yeah.
want to suppress. Because the moment I'm holding this, I no longer am connected to her. I'm no longer genuine. And it's a space of, hey, funny. Like, we're going to depart now, but I notice I'm sad. You're leaving. And I feel really a strong connection. I want to get to know you better. How is that for
Mm.
you? And if I don't do that, it's painful. Like I can't be
Yeah.
with myself. How do you deal with that?
That's the amazing thing about it. Like I would never want people to deny who they are. Yes, you know you meet people, right? Sometimes after half a second you're like, wow. You see someone on the street, you're like, wow, and you feel that connection. But
Mm.
and I'm not telling people, deny it about yourself, suppress these emotions. No, just allow that possibility, that baseline of human connection, which is devoid of any other motive.
Yeah.
And then if you're thinking, okay, I need to continue this in a romantic sense, or I need to continue this in a business sense, no problem. But just acknowledge that baseline first, connection for humanity's sake, and then move on. And then kind of move on into the direction that you want it to go to. Give it a go, absolutely. But then if it doesn't work out, don't feel like you've wasted your time.
No. So,
Yeah,
but
I'm not saying
that's
you
the
do. I'm
thing.
saying that's the thing for me. It's like I will never feel like I wasted my time talking to someone for an hour,
Yeah.
even if it leads nowhere, because of that connection for no other reason.
So,
So
I kind of like you've answered the question, but I'm still curious.
yeah.
When it came up for you, how did you deal with it? Did you talk about it? Because I can really feel your intentions are clean, but
Mm,
as a human being and as a man who has
mm.
emotions and sensations, how do you navigate that process without denying yourself, honoring yourself, and being respectful?
People, friends of mine laugh at me. The people I live with me, and I have like a 2 week rule. Whereas, if I want to respect myself and respect the other person of the call, and I still want to kind of make sure that something happens or try and go down that kind of romantic avenue or check it out, see if there's a possibility, I give myself 2 weeks just to cool it off and then go for it. Now, that may sound ridiculous, and someone said to you, "Oh, come on, you're gonna wait 2 weeks? You were super into her. What? Message her right away, eh?" But I think to me, just because I have such a great respect for the people that I speak to on this project, and I'm getting them to speak to me under the pretense and the idea that it's no ulterior motive, then that respect I need to show them and say and try something 2 weeks later, no problem. Like 2 weeks later, I can message and say, "Hey, I felt like we had a really great connection above and beyond. Da, da, da. Would you like to meet again? Would you like to go for a date? Whatever it may be."
Yeah.
But just give that space in between to allow this conversation that we had for the coffee project to
Nice.
remain pure, to remain
Yeah.
holy.
Yeah, it's the same thing, when you see a trainer who then gets into a relationship with the people that come into their training,
Yeah.
then they create a container, and the container is meant to open up and create a free space. And then when they utilize that to get a sexual gain, because now they're in a vulnerable place, then you see that they're not really taking responsibility for what they've created. And
Yeah.
that's what I hear you doing, because the context is intimacy, but it doesn't mean the intimacy is connected then to any kind of sexual or any other thing other than connection as such.
I don't see the example you gave being the same, because when Ronnie goes into a conversation with someone, he's an equal. He's not an authority. It's like there's the container that we're coming together to learn.
Yeah, but in his mind, he says, "I'm holding space for whatever's coming up."
Yeah.
And the only way I hear him being able to do it with integrity is if he already knows there's no ulterior motive, and I don't even want to have the hint of that. So I'm just here to be present with you.
Yeah.
So that's the way I see him managing it. The fact that he needs to do that is just for him, I guess. Yeah.
And it's very beautiful what you're doing. So thank you for you being you. I want to take it away from the romantic.
I wanted to touch one more thing though before you went forward on this. Don't you actually, when you go and you share what's on your mind, I see that the way you share it is so intense for another individual that you don't see that although you're sharing it, you haven't learned how to share it lightly, so it doesn't fill up the room like a massive amount of intensity. I can give you examples, not of people, but how it would be spoken.
Just give me a second.
Okay.
No, because you haven't been in the room with me when that happens.
I've seen how you interact in life for the last how many years? I know how you
Andy,
interact.
Like, let's get one thing straight. If you're going to bring like the last years as opposed to who I am today, that's completely out of context.
Sure, of course. Yeah. But what I'm saying is this.
So he's saying this. In the past, I used to go up to women.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not saying that.
I used to speak my mind. Oh, what then?
No. I'm saying there's a nuance of subtlety that Ronnie brings to the discussion that you don't bring. You're not subtle. So in a way, the subtlety is you can be subtle with a person. They can feel connected to you and hear what's going on without it being in something that's hard for them to take. And the way I've heard you in your life is you say, this is how it is, very strong, which is it's a very honest. It's as honest as it comes. But for another individual, it's not easy for them to actually take it that way, because that's not how people in general societally say, oh, that's how we communicate. So the subtlety of communications is something that Ronnie is what I'm hearing, and I'll use more. You'll say, this is the way I'm feeling, so I'm going to share it, not always knowing that the consequence of sharing it to the other person is bigger than you actually are aware of. So you say, I'm taking care of me, but what sometimes I've seen you not be aware of, the consequence to the other person.
I wouldn't say that. At least I'm probably going to have to sit with this, right? Okay. But all I know in my interactions right now, it's pretty grounded. I'm really in tune with people, and that has come from
from this evolution here.
Yeah.
I can tell you this way.
So I still bring myself in, but there's a way I do it, and I can't analyze it.
Yeah. Let's just say the prior Bambos that I knew would share it, totally disregarding the fact of the impact on the other, because I have to say it. And what
Which is a beautiful thing too, as well, you know.
Isn't it? I mean, imagine if we could all be that way. How would life look like if we could just say how we were really feeling?
And I do want to say something.
Yeah.
I used to suppress myself in such a way, so I flipped the other way. So suppression, like, I will speak my truth. I won't diminish myself. I won't tone myself down to make others feel comfortable. And if the woman or man is grounded enough or developed in a way that we'll find each other, and if not, there's no blame. It's I get to be me, they get to be them.
Yeah.
And I can always fine tune it and adjust it. And sometimes I just don't want to do that, because I've chosen to attract a certain energy in my life.
Yeah. But I just would like to note there's a consequence for not tuning it.
Absolutely.
Good.
And I'm at peace with that. Like, imagine.
Well, you say you're at peace with that, but if it pushes away a lot of business, then you wouldn't be at peace with it.
I don't do that with business, though.
Oh, okay. I love that we get Ronnie to enjoy watching us have these discussions. This is really, really beautiful.
This is amazing. You know, I feel like I'm having a wonderful, vulnerable conversation without doing any work. I'm just watching it happen, but I'm still part of this, very intimate circle. I love it. With all the people watching too. But,
I have to say that when Andy makes statements about me in the past, I feel angry.
I can imagine.
Because at least I'd like to feel that you share it with more care. Because when you just share it in a way, boom, I feel that when people watch the show and I don't also challenge a little bit, like, no, it's not like this, but then I'm defending.
Yeah.
I don't want to put myself in those situations when we're doing the show anymore.
Well, I'm talking to the woman that are complaining about you in the way that I just said, and I don't want to bring in examples to say, Bambos, what about these situations in the past? So if you really want to go there and pretend like you're not the way that you say that you're not, then you would say,
but you're talking about the past, Andy.
Well, when we say the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, is still things that have happened. You can't say whatever happened. You could say, yeah, I can identify with that.
I'd like to have an example now.
Yeah.
Since we're...
Well, I mean, with COVID, we haven't had as many meetings. So obviously the meetings haven't had the issue. But clearly...
You said 3-4 weeks ago, so
speak. Oh, what I'm saying is if we're in a situation and there are calls that I'll have with people who've had experiences with you in the past, I'll say, listen, that's not who Bambos is. And I have those calls a lot with people who've had very negative experiences with you, like really negative. And I don't know if you realize how negative it is. I don't know if you've embraced that or not. Like the impact you've had on people's lives.
So give me an example.
I can't, because the people's names, I'm not going to put that on air.
Okay.
And the people out there. Like if you really want to,
but you're just to be clear, you're talking about an individual that you've spoken to recently.
At least 5 individuals,
but from years ago.
It would be from the last 6 months to a year, that have said, I haven't had good experiences with Bambos. This is it, and there's a pattern to that experience, which is exactly the same for each one of these individuals. And they'll speak about it in exactly that pattern. So the impact you've had on them. The question is, am I ready to embrace that that's also who I've been? And you'll say, yeah, I can totally identify with that, but that's no longer who I am.
Yeah.
Or are you saying that
the thing that's not fair right now is you're talking about it, but you're talking about it in a very... You're not bringing me the example, so I can't say anything to what you're saying now.
Yeah, but are you telling me you can't identify with this at all, what I'm saying?
Well...
Just say yes or no to that.
Give me a sec. No. You can't do that. Like... If you're talking about the example from today that we spoke about, I shared my side of it, and then you said...
Which example? I don't know.
Oh, from today with...
I'm not even thinking about today. What today?
With the individual you spoke to yesterday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that, but yeah.
Like, that's the most recent thing I know.
Yeah.
But you leave a lot of things open to suggestion, and I don't appreciate that.
You don't appreciate that I leave it open to suggestion?
Yeah.
So let's get one thing clear. The way you've treated people on the streets, women you've dated in the past, has been such that there's been a lot of animosity towards you. And I don't know if you're ready to embrace that or not. If you're going to say, no, that's not true.
Well, at least I'd like to know what I'm saying yes or no to.
Well,
so if you want to talk about this, we should do it after the show.
But you can't identify with that at all? Are you protecting part of an identity, or you're saying, Andy, this is not...
No, Andy, I'd like to know specific what you're talking about, because I can't touch it right now.
Okay.
Also, because we're on the show, we're live, and you're confronting with things that I don't...
I know, but I didn't want to have this discussion. You're the one that brought this up, and that's why we're having it. If you want to go there, then we'll go there. Unfortunately, I'm not going to mention names on air, because that's not what we're going to do here. But to say that this hasn't been a part of my mentoring of you for the last years is absurd. If there's one thing I've been mentoring the whole time, is exactly your inability to distinguish how your behavior has had negative consequences for other people. That's what I've spent the years engaging you on. Years. Even when it comes to customers, how you'll engage a customer and how being too straight with them or direct or forceful pushes them away.
I'm not okay with this conversation, Andy.
Yeah, I understand.
Because I haven't seen myself, at least in the recent year, or at least from beginning of this year, being the person that you are talking about. So to bring up the past now,
so that would be a fair argument.
Really, it hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
It's a fascinating dynamic that like I said, it feels an honor to listen in on and look in on.
And it's the first time on our journey together that I put my foot down, because I see that I'm not in that space anymore.
And I see you are there, and I'm ready to go there toe to toe with you. And if you say you're not there, I'm going to stick even harder on it, because I'm not here to pretend that it's not there. That's not what like, you don't play it, I don't play it. The fact that it's altered or shifted is clear, 100%. But the fact that the small talk thing we had on this show just a moment ago was something you couldn't connect to, and you said, I don't like small talk. I don't think that this is, it's not for me. I have a hard time. Like, that whole aspect is exactly the thing I'm pointing at when it comes to a dynamic, when an individual is having different feelings, how you interact with that individual. And that's a thing that clearly you're getting, I would say, better at. You might not even care, but it's something that even today, when you auto-generated part of the work that we discussed, I said, that's inappropriate. You can't have an auto reminder to send a bill out, that thing. It's an example of what's clear in me of how you interact with another person unintentionally.
Yeah.
How does it feel to bring this up on air? I mean, I don't know what the listenership is or the viewership is, but it's very brave of both of you.
This is why we're here.
Hmm.
And we know that our way of being will be judged, for sure. And we still decide to do it. And in a way, the love that I have for Bambos is why I don't make it easier. Like, I could just pacify it or say we're going to talk about it off air but actually the whole love for him is exactly why I'm saying no. We're going to hold the ground, because there's something here. I don't have to coach or mentor people, but if they start to defend and have a self-identity of who they're not, and then I have an experience that's otherwise, no matter how nuanced it might be, then I'm not going to, my life is too short to not hold that boundary. And that's where the biggest breakthroughs come. That's where people actually aren't there for their friends. Like, they say they're there for their friends, but when their friends start not holding themselves accountable to what their behavior is, they actually are not serving them in how I experience friendship, at least.
How does that feel for you, Bambos? Yeah. I'm curious. Yeah.
Definitely feel a lot of sadness right now. And I'm kind of sitting here trying to create the space to, there's something that I'm not seeing that apparently Andy's experiencing in me.
Or not, right? Because it's a projection, so we'll take responsibility for that as well.
And if I've learned anything in my life, the moment I defend, then there's definitely something to look at. It doesn't mean it makes it easy, and this is the part of me there's a part of me that just wants to be loved.
Mm.
And yeah, this is the show. We're not here to pretend, and we're not here to. And it's not always easy.
Mm. Requires a lot of energy, a lot of bravery, like I said before.
How you feeling?
I'm breathing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Hmm.
It feels I don't want to break the silence, but it feels appropriate maybe just to share a small thought that I had.
Please.
I often give workshops and to do with storytelling or speak to people about stories. And generally at the beginning we go on a meditation. We head off to the land of stories, which is this magical space where anything that you imagine can happen,
Mm.
and anything that you can dream of can occur. The most important thing about the land of stories is that no one can take it away from you because it's in your mind.
Mm.
And when I was, watching and listening to the two of you talk here in this kind of so public yet very intimate space, you've created your own land of stories where you're wrestling with what your stories are. Specifically you, Bambos, you very bravely ripping apart and knocking together what you are. What is your story? That can only happen because of this creation here, which is in itself a land of stories. So an amazing thing.
Thanks for sharing that.
There's a lot of love and support that's come in of the last few moments.
Wow.
I like how Brigid told us to talk about it after the show. Guys, you're live. Talk about it after the show. I love it. For those that aren't aware, we've been working together
since 2014.
Wow.
And there is a lot of our relationship has been traditionally mentorship type of role, or it's shifted a lot over the years because as people evolve, you become equals in things. Like there's things where you just equalize, and roles change, so there shouldn't be a fixed idea of what the right thing is, of course. And yet there's times I remember with my mentor, the times it was hardest for me was the times like this when I'm with Bambos, but this would normally happen not on camera for me as well.
Yeah.
So it's easy to look at it out of context and not understand what's really going on here. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that.
And guys, please don't bombard us with hate messages.
Yeah, please don't do the Andy, you don't see Bambos, or you're interpreting, or Bambos, I can heal you. I'm sorry. Like in some way, we're both very capable of taking care of ourselves, and we're okay being vulnerable on the screen without needing to be told how we're wrong or how we can improve our lives. Yeah.
Guess that's the thing,
We get that sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I guess there's no one who can really see that context aside from the two of you.
Yeah. And it confuses people sometimes as well, of course. Yeah. Even if we do shows, even just discussing that alone, because they won't watch those shows. They'll just see one of these shows and think, what's this weird dynamic going on here? That kind of thing.
Hmm.
Well, Ronnie, we've gone a bit over already. So my question to you is, if people do want to get more information or have a coffee with you, how would that be done?
Well, my website, I can put the link. You can send it to you. I think you have it. Very, very simple, ronniegurwicz.com. Well, I say simple, but with a Lithuanian Jewish name, it's not very simple. There's lots of W's and Z's. But easiest, just Google 1000 coffees with Ronnie, no E on the end of the I, the end of Ronnie, and you'll find me. And I will truly welcome any reach outs for a coffee. We'll do it over Zoom. We'll do it in person now that things are opening up.
1000 coffees with Ronnie.
That's it. Find
Thank
me.
you.
I will answer. I
There's
promise.
2 ends. There's 2 ends, not 1 end, right? There's 2 ends with Ronnie.
Yeah, sorry.
We'll
RONNI.
RONNI.
That's it.
1000 coffees.
And as I promised to you, I never say no to anyone. So
yeah, exactly. Well, we'll send some real losers your way, and hopefully see you can say no to somebody.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, I mean,
we're gonna talk to you in a year from now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll evaluate.
I'd like to have you back on to discuss the other 700. Yeah.
I would love that. I would love that. And one of the things that I do note down from conversations are kind of vague statistics, kind of give or take the ages of the people I've spoken to, where they come from. And that could be after about 700, that could become, interesting to look at what that says about the world. I think that you'd have a field day with those those numbers.
Statistically relevant data coming out of you could be a field researcher.
Now that would be an ulterior motive, which we're trying to get away from.
Very good point. I think we're gonna leave together. We won't cut them out. Do you want to cut out, or we just go for we'll say goodbye altogether. So for those that are with us, we still will be here tomorrow. I guarantee you, Baumbus will be back.
What are we watching?
I don't have no idea what's on tomorrow, but we'll see you tomorrow on A Wonderful Chaos.
A Wonderful Chaos indeed.
Yes, it is.